Welcome, everyone, to the Tesla Beat podcast number 72. This is insane. So we are literally, it's crazy because this has been the biggest rally in one day in the past 10 years. So tons of excitement. There was even a 2% bump today. So we are over 265 at 220. And the funny thing is, I think Brian, tell us about the move that Elon just made as far as his net worth.
Well, for those who don't know, Elon holds a few Tesla shares, and yesterday his net worth just in Tesla shares increased by more than the entire net worth of everyone alive, apart from 71 people. There are 71 people who have a net worth greater than Elon's change in net worth yesterday. So that's, I guess, a big deal.
Yeah, just a little. But yeah, no, I think it's been such a blast to see this. I think this was totally unexpected. I mean, he guided like, hey, we could grow 20 to 30% next year. I was not expecting that, especially given the climate that we're in, where auto sales is and everything. But I think let's just go around. We may end up having Hans, unfortunately, could not make it. He, of course, double dipping. He's always on these crazy podcasts. I think he's with Farzad at the moment. But we may have a couple of people jumping in, so we won't mention who they are unless they actually jump in. So I think let's do a quick panel on what were your biggest thoughts? What were your biggest takeaways? How are you feeling? Not that this is like a feelings thing, but like it's been a pretty brutal year. I mean, if you look at this, we're finally up, 7% year to date. It's been a lot of headwinds this year. And so this has been, one of those big moments of the year, I would say.
So the biggest thing I thought going into it was I was asked how could Tesla beat expectations, and I said the two big ones are FSD recognition and and energy stationary storage, with a third being cost of goods reduction, and those turned out to be three of the biggest factors that were in play. Getting 30% margins on Megapack, those are not cheap devices. We're talking 30% on billions of dollars. By revenue alone, Tesla stationary storage they have more revenue than some companies in the Fortune 500, just in that division. The other thing they'll look at is cost of goods reduction. It is cheaper now to build a Tesla than it has ever been before, despite years of inflation, and that's because you could see it coming. The parts suppliers had surplus capacity. They are able to cut deals, and who are you going to cut deals for but your most dependable customers, the people who place orders and take orders. These are the people you want to be good to, not Ford and GM who will order a million of something and then cancel the car completely. You need dependable buyers, and those are the ones who are likely to get the best prices. And so I wasn't surprised to see any of that. And then we've got of course the new products coming out, the fact that we do expect 20 to 30% growth next year, the fact that we are making the roadmap today to get Robotaxi out real and huge. This is the most hopeful earnings call we've had in a long time. The numbers look good. On the call, Elon sounded relaxed and comfortable and hopeful. And I don't know, the reaction on Wall Street is unsurprising. Things went really well, and it's hard to spin it in a bad light.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. It's so funny when you look at the beginning of this year and everybody was calling for his head, right? And it's just like every single time, man. I mean, this is like probably one of the greatest earnings calls we've ever had, and then the market reacted promptly as they never do, right? So it's it was just such a whirlwind of different things. But yeah, man, there's so much tailwind right now for Tesla, and we see it every day because we pay attention and we're watching the stuff day in and day out. We see the posts, we see what's happening with Optimus, we saw the Robotaxi event. We knew people who are driving FSD every day, especially hands-free with the 5.5, they get it, right? But Wall Street doesn't know half of that stuff. They didn't see any of that. They didn't know most of it. So for them to hear that there's only one profitable battery EV maker in the world, and that's Tesla. I think that was a light switch moment for them. I think that you realize a lot of these type of things, like even GM getting rid of the Ultium platform nomenclature that they got rid of now. It's like there's a lot of things happening in the EV space, and you're just watching Tesla just navigate all of it. They navigated the 2020, they navigated all of these things, they've overcome all of these hurdles, all while people are telling them that they aren't crap, they can't do it, and it's not going to happen for them, and they just constantly keep doing it. So yeah, I just think it was a really great call. And like Brian said, I mean, he was comfortable, he was energetic, you know what I mean? Like and I liked what, like him even passing, you know what I mean, the the mic to people who he felt needed to highlight what they needed to highlight, instead of him just like hogging the mic and speaking over everything. I thought that was just, it was just a really good call overall.
And I would add to this that we now saw that Tesla's cost of goods sold is 36,000 and what, $200, $300 on average per vehicle. Now, the most vehicles they're selling are Model Ys. There are, of course, Cybertrucks, which cost more to build, S and X, which costs more to build, Model 3, which costs less. But if the average of your fleet is 36,000 as your build cost, the legacy guys are looking at that saying, 36,000. We can't build our average car for that, and we're building cheap old ICE cars. Now we got to try and mix in electric cars. This is, if you're not concerned as a competitor, you're not paying attention.
Oh yeah, they're concerned. 100%. 100% they are concerned, man. They've
Yeah.
been
Go ahead.
concerned for a while. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I actually just pulled up the deck as you were saying that. So it's 35. Our cost of goods sold per vehicle came down to its lowest ever at 35,100. But I would say, no, I mean, you're dead on in that. Like, think about it. Lucid is losing $500,000 per vehicle. And I think the other sleeper that I was sleeping on, obviously because I drive a Cybertruck, was it's the third best selling EV. I'm not even talking truck, like best selling EV truck. It is the best selling. It's the third best selling EV in all of the United States. So this is absolutely, it's crazy. And more importantly, they launched it. They started a couple of deliveries really in like November 30th of last year, whenever the event was. Right. But really, they didn't ramp it because it went to employees for the whole month of December. And then in January is when deliveries probably to customers really started. And in a matter of 9 months from that point, 9-10 months, whatever you want to call it, they are now gross margin. They're now profitable. They have a positive gross margin. They're no longer eating costs. Who in their bloody mind creates the most advanced looking truck? And in a lot of, at least the hate on social media is the most like a refrigerator, the most ugly looking truck. And yet in 9 to 10 months, you could put out something and it's already profitable. Nobody snaps their fingers and does that, right? And I just think it's so that's definitely one thing I took out. It's like those little tidbits. I think the other one too, Brian, you mentioned just the mega pack being at 30.5%. Just in their gross margin. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And it's partially because the thing is with mega packs and batteries and solar, there could be unlimited demand for these things, right? Yeah. It's one of those things where especially in California, Brian, I know you're up in Oregon, but we deal with a lot of wildfires here, and then we also deal with power outages as far as things being shut down because the grid is just being hit at its limit. And so for us, PG&E is notorious for shutting down our power. This year hasn't been too bad, not as many issues with fires, but every year it feels like it becomes worse. So this year is maybe 2 steps back as far as it's actually getting better. But to have that type of operating margin, especially when, as we know that the that the auto business, their operating margin has been, or their gross margin has been dwindling because of obviously, ramping costs, making efficiencies. But we know that that has been dwindling, and people keep bringing that up. So now, when you have this business that is going to have like unlimited demand, be at a 30% margin, and you continue to ramp it, they're building these mega pack factories in China, Nevada, I believe. They already have one in California. So it's just going to be really exciting. And then I think even in Germany, aren't they building one there too?
They've got the battery factory, but there's no clear plans to make megapacks there yet. In Nevada, they're also doing a lot of battery work, but that's where megapacks were made before Lathrop. They're not made there anymore. But we've seen that the 40 gigawatt hours coming out of Lathrop is real. And I mean, Joe can tell you he's driven by a time or two. The place is a madhouse. It is always in motion. And then, but the real thing is, you guys, margin, it could collapse tomorrow. What if prices have to be reduced? Guys, prices have been reduced. All the prices are being reduced constantly, including on Megapack. Megapack had a huge price drop this year, and they're still showing 30% margins. So good news, these things could get marginally cheaper over time while the margin continues to expand. And then we've got the Juniper refresh coming up. And what we learned from the Model 3 refresh is you can make a better car for less money. If all of the Model Ys are going into the new Juniper design in the next 6 months, 12 months, what that means is the cost of goods sold is going to drop again for a better car.
Well, you're also looking at a full tech vehicle, right? And as we know, tech moves very quickly and cheaply as it goes along. So, I mean, TVs used to be so expensive, and now I was just at the Walmart the other day. You could get a freaking 40-inch for like $200. It's like insane. So, like, of course, the vehicles are going to go cheaper because all the components to make them are getting cheaper and cheaper, especially at Tesla's scale, which is like one of the things that I love that Elon mentioned. Like, yeah, there's other people that are making these things, but nobody is making them at the manufacturing scale that Tesla is. And I think that kind of goes overlooked a lot when it comes to Tesla is their manufacturing prowess. And like the one thing, like you said, they can't copy is the factory. Yeah, I mean, they can break down the vehicles all they want and copy whatever, but the fact is they will not be able to manufacture at the scale that Tesla does profitably.
Yeah, no, it's truly remarkable what they're doing. I mean, even if Tesla calls, it's kind of like Amazon, right? Amazon is the best in the business, the most cutthroat, especially cutthroat retailer. They're the person you want their business because you need it because of volume, but they're also like the worst and most ruthless person. And again, I don't know everything, but Tesla, I can tell you they run with that same rigor and ruthlessness as far as getting the best rates, making sure that every item is talked about. They work on timelines. Everything is just going to be etched out. So, Brian, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Okay. But I think, so I think obviously, so we talked about the Cybertruck. We talked about the Mega Pack factory. This was another interesting stat. Over 2 billion miles driven cumulatively on FSD supervised as of Q3, with more than 50% on V12, which is just crazy. But, I think, and I think you may have mentioned it, Brian or Joe, but like, I do think that we are kind of at this turning point. Hopefully, I mean, we've been mentioning this, like, this is why I bought Tesla stock, or why, I wanted to be a part of the community, was because I knew that this was not a book company, right? Like, Amazon is not a book company. This is not a car company. And, like my Cybertruck, I drove probably an hour in traffic last night on streets, because in the Cupertino area, all the way through Saratoga back to my home. And it took me the whole way. I mean, and that's the thing, is that this is, Tesla is really, on the brink of solving full self-driving. They're mentioning that it's going to happen next year. And so, what did you, I don't know if anything came to mind when you heard the stat about 2 billion miles driven on FSD, and then 50% on V12 is crazy.
Nothing comes to mind for me, because this is just in motion. This is an unstoppable machine. The miles are what you need. You know, we joked about how Waymo has no training data on moose because it's never seen one. Not a whole lot of them in urban San Francisco or Phoenix, as far as I'm aware. But there's, yeah, I think Elon had at one point had said once you've got, I think, 7 billion miles, FSD is solved. That number may still be accurate. It may be significantly less or more. We don't know because we're not there. But this approach is scalable. People are still under the mistaken impression that Waymo has a lead. Well, we've got 25 million passenger rides without a driver in the car. Yeah, but not without a driver. The driver just isn't in the car. You just move them to a call center somewhere. I mean, it's a step, but is it a step or is it a crutch? And it feels like a crutch. For any of us who have been driving with FSD, watching the improvements has been pretty ridiculous and amazing. The only thing I'm waiting to see is on the safety report to see, accidents go down further. We've seen them pretty steady for a few years, and I think that's just the safety level of the supervisor behind the wheel, making them all look more normalized than they otherwise would be, while the system itself is doing a greater and greater percentage of the work. When I'm driving now, I am not freaked out and micromanaging the entire drive because I'm afraid it's going to do something crazy. There are some situations where I know to pay more attention if there's a construction zone or something weird going on or some new traffic revision to the road. I will pay greater attention. But for a lot of the drive, it is predictable. I know what it's doing. So I think the safety report in that regard can be a little bit misleading.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's also fundamental to realize that when you're using it and you're hands-free and you're just looking at the road. I mean, I know like the end goal is for everybody to like be on their phone and driving, but hands-free is like insane where you're just like not touching anything and just chilling. Whereas before, like Brian said, you used to have to micromanage and please pay attention, yank on the wheel a little bit and all that type of stuff. I mean, like we're there now, you know what I mean? And I know that on the call, he mentioned that unsupervised might be difficult with hardware 3, but man, you're pretty much unsupervised now. Like it's
And I would address the hardware 3 thing. There are people like Fred who are saying, oh, this proves that it won't work. No, it doesn't, Fred. That's not what was said. What was said is, if it doesn't work on hardware 3, we will take care of you. We'll make it right. That's not saying it won't. You can get doomed to run on a fax machine. You can get doomed to run on a home pregnancy test. It can be done. Once you know what the solution is, then you can simplify. Engineering is adding more parts until it works and then removing parts until it stops working, and then you found your limit. If you look at the homebrew games that software developers have made to run on the Atari 2600 using the original hardware, they've got some breathtakingly good games for how simple the compute available is, and it's not because the hardware's gotten better, it's because the engineering has.
Yeah, and I liked what Ashok said too. You know, you have it for level 4. You take the kernels and you just scale them back, and then that's exactly what Brian's talking about. This is going to be like manageable, and it's. I mean, I'm not a computer engineer, right? But I think that he wouldn't say that if they didn't have a clear path to do it, and clearly it's been working, which is why you have end to end right now across the board, and that works on hardware 3. So I just don't see a path to where they couldn't get this working on hardware 3. And I know people love to scream doom and gloom. Like, of all the great things that happened on this call, it's like watching a Whistling Diesel video. Yeah, it can survive C4. But look at the tail. Look at the tail hitch.
You're not wrong, Joe. If you look at all the great things we heard, it gets ridiculous at some point that's the nitpicking we're going to have to do just to complain about it. And yeah, there's Elon is prone to optimism, but the Tesla AI team, not as much. They set out some crazy ambitious targets in August, and in September, they hit all of them. And it was because they weren't crazy ambitious. These are in the pipeline. We know our release dates and everything looks good. So when Elon speaks, I can understand wanting to temper expectations a bit. But when Ashok does, it's a little more real, I suppose.
Yeah, my
Agreed.
my thoughts on the hardware 3. So first off, like every quarter, they've been extending this FSD transfer. And I personally would say that if you have a hardware 3 um, Model 3, like you will want to upgrade to the latest Model 3. And it's just because they are two completely different vehicles. And so, like, if you're going to, obviously it could be financial decision on why you're holding on to the Model 3, but ultimately, this thing was launched over 4 years ago. I actually didn't, there was so much going on yesterday. I didn't even have time to post about it, but it was literally 4 years ago as of yesterday where Raj and I were just sitting in a car and we literally drove to Target and FSD beta was released. And in those 4 years, I can't tell you, like I said, my car is driving me from one place to the next. It can handle even crazy places like San Francisco and these insane inclines. It can handle random cars in the road. And as Brian was saying, sure, you might be having like a Waymo, they have all these amount of rides, but the person sitting in the call center, for me, it's like, I think, I forgot where I heard this, but it's like every input from the human is technically an error into the system, because the point is that the system is not supposed to be getting any human intervention. The computer's supposed to be doing all the driving.
Right.
So that is something. I mean, Uber mentioned this, like you can't ever, it's not going to be easy to compete against Elon. You have the Waymo founder talking, the old Waymo founder talking about how, again, he's, how you can't bet against Elon, how it's going to be really hard. Tesla will always have an advantage just given the amount of miles that they're putting. So I think people that have the hardware 3, I get it. Like if I owned one and I did not, let's say, have the means or want to upgrade, or maybe I'm just like one of those people who wants to buy the car and never, upgrade and drive it till it's literally like, burnt in the ground. There are those type of people, but like the reality is that this is one of the hardest problems in the world to solve. And I do think, yes, Elon is overly optimistic, and he has to be, given the visionary that he is. If he's not a little bit wrong in some areas, and I would say he's not necessarily wrong, it's just he's being very optimistic and probably should stop giving deadlines. But at the end of the day, he delivers. I mean, look at the stuff he's doing with SpaceX. I literally just talked to the first ever Neuralink patient yesterday, Nolan. I mean, this guy is just making the biggest impact on humanity, the biggest change. He's not like one of those people who's like complaining. He's actually taking action. I mean, you may not agree with, him and Trump right now, but he sees a problem, he's taking action on it. And so at least he's being true to his character and nature on that. So
It's funny, real quick, to take it back a little bit, is Raj did post that video yesterday, and
yeah,
and the visualizations, and it's so funny to me because when you look at PlayStation games now, like PlayStation 1 games, back then you thought, oh my God, that was incredible. Looking at those freaking visualizations is freaking brutal, man. And that wasn't even that long ago. Like the boxes around, oh man, that was insane to watch.
And at best, it looked like early Windows.
Right. And we thought it was cool.
It was cool.
It was boxes. The red one does this. The yellow one does this.
Right.
We have like our color maps, right?
That was crazy. Those visualizations are insane, man.
Joe, I'll randomly put you on the spot. You want to hit this one?
Yeah, no, you know what? It's a failing business, and it's better to not get into it. Really, is what you're looking at here. So, what's wild about seeing this whole thing? I mean, besides China just like crushing it on everything, and you look at those China numbers and you think, oh my God, but then you realize that like the number one seller in China is freaking Tesla too. So it's like those are great numbers, man. But look at the rest of the world and all of the pullback from EVs, and they're just not working, and Tesla's like, maybe not for you, but they're working.
No one wants to buy EVs. No one wants to buy your EVs at the price at which you are selling your EVs.
Right.
And you see that little flat spot there a couple of quarters ago. You remember all of the Looney Tunes out there screaming the end is here. EVs will never, they had their day in the sun and now they're going to disappear and die. And I thought, I do not know which of the world's finest herbs and spices you have to consume to believe that. This is a pause. The entire market's pausing. And now we are back to growth. And it was only in certain markets at certain times. It's back. If you look at Mercedes and BMW, their sales are down. Oh, but their EV sales are up. And that is true of a lot of brands. Ford and GM didn't post great volume numbers, but their EV sales were up. They found that we can move as many as we want. We just have to lower the price to a point that people will actually pay it and commit to losing that much money. Honda Prologue, fourth best selling EV in the US, which is amazing. It's like being the fourth best looking guy at work, I suppose. I don't know if I've been that, but yeah, it's the numbers are real.
Yeah, one other amazing chart that Joe threw in there. So this one is amazing because, right, like I think we literally just talked about how one, not only cash is king, and we have the biggest Tesla holder, the King Prez Joe himself with the King hat. So like, I think the thing is that there's what, over 33 billion in cash right now. So you're talking, I mean, like just thinking that Tesla has this amount of cash is absolutely just crazy, right? And so the fact that they're getting to be able to get close to $6 billion in cash, I mean, this is the most ever that they've had in a month or quarter, right? So it's just really a quarter. So you look all that, that's amazing, right? Insane growth rates, especially on this on the operating cash. But the chart on the right is literally free cash flow history of pure EV makers. So what do you see here? I mean, again, you have a company that took a Cybertruck, which is the most polarizing and viral product ever launched. In 9 to 10 months, they make it profitable, but that's their mentality and their ability. But if you look at every other company, most of them continue to trend down, um, continue to trend negatively. And you're lucky if you have a couple that can kind of move up, right? But none of them are break even, right? None of them are profitable. And I think that there's something to be said about that. And so if the problem is, if you have a company like Tesla, obviously, unfortunately, they don't have time to make every single vehicle. But if you had a company, if they did expand into other, making some other cars, which we know they will at various points, but they have a magic sauce that can just make things happen. But again, we all know Tesla is a robotics and AI company. And so they even said, I think their next vehicle, and we can actually get into the speculation on this, and we should potentially deep dive on that a little bit. But just the fact that, is their next vehicle going to be fully autonomous electric vehicle, or is there going to be, a $25,000 car that has a steering wheel and pedals in it? All that to say is that this chart alone is truly amazing to see. I don't know, Joe or Brian, if you have any thoughts on these charts.
So real quick before Brian goes, like I'll say that this is probably one of the most I don't know how you want to say it. It's just like this is as real as it gets. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at a company that keeps telling people like this is the way to go. You can do it. They were, cash flow negative for so long. I mean, you can look at those numbers. They were just like everybody else for so long. But then they manufacturing, like they just made enough and just kept going at it. And that's, I mean, you hate to see this. I mean, it looks brutal, but eventually everybody's got to go up as long as if they stay with it. I mean, they just got to just keep at it because it didn't happen overnight for Tesla. I mean, this chart would make you think it did, but if you look at it, I mean, it was bad for a really long time, and then it turned around. So eventually, it's going to happen for them, but I mean, this also tells another tale too. Like everybody is so far behind, and the more that you keep putting yourself further back, like, oh, well, 2027 is when we're going to go all in. Oh, you know what? Actually, 2029, 2028 is, you're just putting yourself further and further in the hole for a longer period of time. And you just need to just ball out, just commit to it, just go ham.
The only pure, by the way, if my volume is better, let me know. I did adjust it. The only maker on this list that is not pure electric appears to be Ford. If BYD's on there, I didn't see it. And that's because Ford has chosen to break out their numbers for just the electric division. And while, yes, Tesla went years losing money, they weren't losing money on a per vehicle basis, which means the more units you sell, the closer you are to profitability. If you're losing money on every car you sell, the easiest way to lose less money is to sell fewer cars. And if you look at someone like Lucid, they are very good at selling fewer cars. That's a real skill that they have. So what you've got is the problem with that chart is the depth to which, the speed at which they're losing money. A lot of those companies on there have only been around half as long as Tesla and are already twice as deep in the hole as Tesla ever got. They have looked at it, especially Rivian. Rivian and Lucid, it looks like they've said, well, we've got investor money, we might as well spend it. And that is a very dangerous approach. And until you get your cost controls in order, it's a real tough road.
One thing I wanted to, oh, Joe, did you want to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with that, like, wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing, there was different. So Elon commented on this, and then also too, the deck did make a couple statements about future vehicles. So, for example, there was one statement here. Let me just look at this, the product section. So, plans for new vehicles, including more affordable models, remain on track for start of production in the first half of 2025. So Elon, so there's that in the deck. So everyone's like, oh, this, the $25,000 vehicle is coming. I pretty much thought it was pretty clear Elon shutting that down and saying that the next 25 or the more affordable vehicle is the fully autonomous Cybercab. I thought he made that very loud and clear, but it sounds like people in the community also got different interpretations of his comments and of the deck. Yeah. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, he's muted. Okay, so
yeah, go ahead. I was saying, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Okay. So this is what I'll say. I'll say my take is that if you want a $25,000 vehicle, then buy yourself a Cybercab. Other than that, you're going to have a cheaper version. They're gonna do what they can to bring down the cost of the Model 3 and the Model Y, and those will also be cheap. You got to realize right now you can get a Model 3, and this is like the Highland Model 3 for like under 30 grand. And if you lived in Colorado, I mean, you can get it for dirt cheap. So like these things it's already there. You know what I mean? And if you go use, it's even better. But like we're so close, and when you're looking at like their margin costs, let's say they decided to go take it down to, instead of doing, what are they at, like 20% or something like that, Brian?
Yes.
So what if they decided to do 15%? You know what I mean? They would still be industry leading, and they could still have a cheaper vehicle. And I think like somebody made a post yesterday about, well, if they remove this, if they remove that, you know what I mean? Like the LED lights around, and they got rid of a few things that make it luxury-ish. Like you could end up with a pretty cheap vehicle. And I think that's probably what they'll do, is they'll probably just make a cheaper Model 3 and do, but you got to think Tesla doesn't like to complicate their lines. And so I don't see them like making a whole separate vehicle. I see them taking something existing they have right now and just scaling it back.
So on the compact, we've been suggested the lower price vehicle based on the 3 or Y. I'm done speculating on that. We'll find out soon enough. Within the next probably 6 months, we'll have a very good idea. But let's talk about the $25,000 human full meat driven compact based on the Cybercab. It is not going to happen. In April, NV91 was canceled. And Reuters made a big report about it. Elon came out and said, no, cheap car's not canceled. That's fake news. In fact, so much so I'm going to have a special event just to show you what I mean. And that was what 1010 became. But what we did see is that the NV91 was canceled. We know that. That's a real thing. But all that means is one thing was canceled. It doesn't mean there's no $25,000 car. A lot of people have looked at the Cybercab and said, this can be meat driven. And I say, it can't. Well, it'd be very easy. Just put seats in the back. No, that the wall behind the passenger space is structural. That's not going, you can't remove that. We don't need it. We are past that chapter. You're trying to put a different coat of paint on a horse-drawn carriage. We're over that.
They're trying to put keyboards on an iPhone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but what if we did a keyboard like this? Guys, we're past it. We need to move on. So I agree with everything you guys are saying. This is the $25,000 car is the Cybercab. It's not going to have a wheel. You can't simply add one. The place where all the equipment would go has already been consumed by other systems. You can't just put a portable one in because then where does the airbag go? And NHTSA has got crash requirements. It's a different car. I've got some videos coming up. I'm in St. George, Utah for the weekend for the big Tesla Light Show. I've got a bunch of my engineering buddies from Detroit out. We are going to be making videos discussing this in greater detail about why the Cybercab can't be human operated. And like John said, I thought it was made very clear that this is what the plan is. But I think people just really want a compact that they can buy that looks like that so they can have it and drive it.
All right. So we have a special guest. So first off, thank you, Brian, for dropping dimes. I think we're all in the same camp. We can actually get our special guest feedback on the actual earnings call, and potentially maybe he can even help us settle this debate on whether an actual $25,000 car is coming. So we have Bradford. How's it going from Rebellion Air? How are you doing?
Doing great. And we could stay on the current topic.
Well,
I'm wondering, because Elon said it's very hard to take out 20% from the cost of a car, and you're taking out from a car, so it is implying that they're taking it out of the 3 and Y. So some people are wondering, might we see a lower trim on 3 and Y? I'm curious what Brian and you all think about that. So a 3 and Y where the seats aren't leather, they're cloth, would be a start. There could be some other things you could do. Maybe you strip away the video screen from the back, do some other things. Is that not a possibility? What are you thinking there?
They already do it for the Mexico trim. So that is a thing that already exists. They wanted a less expensive model in Mexico. It has cloth seats. They removed the back thing, the back screen. So it's exactly what you're talking about. And 20% just with cost of goods reduction, we're on our way there. It doesn't take many pieces to have to cut out. The sound system is phenomenal. You could lose another $500 to $1,000 right there and still have a fantastic car. And you're getting real close. And all of these are robotaxi ready. So if we're going to trim that margin a little bit, Elon has famously said, if I sold these at zero margin, it wouldn't matter, because in the future, the revenue will arrive when FSD is feature complete. And I think he's absolutely right. And I think that was a good point, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the idea of cloth seats. There's no need for a rear screen. And in most vehicles, the Model Y is the best-selling vehicle in the world right now, and it doesn't have a rear screen. So yeah,
True.
for sure.
That's a great point, Joseph.
Bradford, I think, since you joined us, and you've probably had a couple of days now to digest, really just take in everything. What stuck out to you from the earnings call? What were you looking forward to? Did this beat your expectations on, walking into the call? How was your take on the call? Or
probably the thing we most care about is autonomy. And for that reason, hearing more from Ashoka Laswamy about their pathway to getting the disengagements down to a human level where potentially the Tesla robotaxis, the S, X, 3, and Y, and the Cybercab could get in accidents at an equal rate as humans without supervision. That was probably the biggest thing for me, but also that their internal data on critical interventions was 100x lower now with version 12.5 versus version 11 that was there in January. That was huge, and also just reflecting on how it drives in my area. I'm in Carmel, Indiana. I could not get from home to work or work to home without a disengagement before, and most of them were fairly critical seeming. Now it's often where I'd say it's like 98, 99% where it gets me there without a critical disengagement. So literally it's 50 to 100x better for me. Now there's, stylistic things that, people have issues with FSD, but it is greatly improved. So I think that was the biggest message for me from the earnings call. But seeing other areas of improvement were great as well. And we can talk about those.
No, I think you bring up a good point. I think also what's kind of lost on the fact is that for the past couple of years, especially since version 10, right, we've been like experiencing what we've kind of known to be the FSD. But holy crap, man, when you go back to like where we were before that, and like early on, even with the mobilized stuff, you really start to paint a different picture of the evolution of FSD and where it is today. And we're kind of spoiled, and it's like, oh, I got too close to that curb. Like, calm down. No other car is doing that. You know what I mean? Period. Like get over it. It's freaking driving you home. You don't have to touch the wheel. You're great. You know what I mean? But we're kind of spoiled in that regard, and we just want to be able to do our makeup. Not me, not me, but other people want to do their makeup and
me.
Stuff. Right.
So I was in an Uber yesterday, and I had an opportunity to experience full meat driving, and I forgot how bad drivers are. I mean, we pulled out across 2 lanes, and then you realize, oh, a truck's coming, and then we're parked sideways across 2 lanes, and I thought, you know what? I would leave a nasty note on my disengagement report right now, except that this is a human. So we have to also realize that it does. A lot of people feel it needs to drive not only perfect, not only safely, but drive like them. And it doesn't. Last summer, I had an opportunity to go to Carmel, Indiana, and meet up with Bradford. And he took me through, 24 roundabouts. These of all sizes, big ones, little ones. The town is lousy with them. They're everywhere. And it really helps traffic flow. But a lot of them are brand new. A lot of them, the car will come up to, and, it's only been there 6 months or a year, and it handled every single one of them like nothing at all. Better than a lot of the people at the roundabouts. So yeah, it's an incredibly complex problem, and the progress is tremendous.
Another source of excitement for me is Tesla increasing their compute. They said 75%. You guys might have talked about this a little earlier. But my message here would be, it seems like each time Tesla has increased their compute, they delivered in spades with new software. And I understood that as Cortex was coming online, that they would be utilizing it. And we've been seeing the fruits of that. So they weren't going to just wait until all 50,000 were online to be using it. They would get use out of it when they had 10,000 and 20 and 30. So it's encouraging to see how much Cortex is increasing their compute, and probably part of that's some Dojo going into Cortex. So it's not just NVIDIA's, but then how much more it's going to increase after they finish up with getting Cortex online. We're already seeing those fans blowing. So I'm a fan. I'm excited to see what they're able to deliver in the next few months with Cortex online.
Yeah, Tesla doesn't wait for things to be complete before they start utilizing it. I mean, hell, the Texas factory isn't even done yet, and they've been cranking vehicles out of there for years. So, yeah, definitely the compute and like Elon said, they're not compute constrained, right? So that's it's all positive. I love that. Gary said FSD is now the worst it's ever going to be, and that's a fact. Just thinking about that. This is
Gary Black.
no, no. Gary
Just a commenter, yeah.
commenter, Gary Menendez.
Oh yeah. All right, we'll put you, Gary. Yeah, it's actually the best that it's ever been. I don't know about you, but
no, it's the best it's ever been, but this is the worst it's ever going to be.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Sorry, my bad. It's now the worst. Okay, I misread that.
We're just automatically in defensive mode because of all the crazes out there.
It's the years of whiplash of fun. Yeah, no, I think it's crazy, but you remember when Tesla gave XAI all of their extra NVIDIA chips and everyone was freaking out.
Oh man.
But one other thing I wanted to quickly talk about was this also was pretty breaking. So I think for me, like I was not expecting for Elon to randomly drop, hey, we're going to grow 20 to 30%. And then that was like, my mind was blown because like they're reaccelerating things. And especially in the election climate that we're in, he's saying that obviously in case of some crazy disaster, COVID happening again or something, right? Like we can potentially make that happen. The other couple of dimes he was dropping was, Tesla employees are already, getting access to ride hailing. We also know this week that Tesla is in communications with Palo Alto to get areas that they can actually do ride hailing as well. And so now it's like, and the funny thing is too, is that Uber and Lyft, their stock reacts every time too that you hear more about this. Yeah. So it's like, whether you believe it or not, like, Tesla is a competitor with Uber and Lyft, right? Because they're going to have the full vertical integration. But what did you guys think about the comments about some of the news that's been happening with Palo Alto and some of the things that were shared about the ride hailing business that Tesla is going to be getting into?
Well, real quick, I'll say, but before Brian goes, is that I think it's funny as all get out that this was on the Q1 report, and then everybody had to go back to the Q1 report and pull up these images because we're so quarter to quarter, right? That we don't even nobody really thought about that. And I just think that right there was like the funniest thing ever. He's like, yeah, no, we've been on this. We even put it in a Q1 report. Everybody's like, wait, going back through their books. I just thought that was hilarious. But no, I think what Palo Alto is geared up to do is going to be pretty remarkable. I think that, man, kudos to the NDA team because we didn't hear nothing about people getting ride-hailing vehicles to work. Like that's just hella crazy that this has just been going on. So I think it's awesome. I think when they unload that app and stuff like that, I mean, it looks incredible. It looks really fluid. That UI looks like how it did in the since Cybertruck unveil, which is pretty cool. I can't wait for that to get inside the vehicles.
So I think that it's unsurprising that Palo Alto would be in talks with them. They've already got some trials going, and it looks like Tesla would be able to just tack on to the existing permit, so there wouldn't be huge regulatory obstacles. The fact that they've been testing it makes sense, and the fact that we haven't seen it makes sense because there is a safety driver who's just sitting there. It looks like any of us driving our Teslas. The only part we didn't see is the ride-hailing portion of it, which would look from a viewer's perspective like they just grabbed an Uber. We wouldn't even notice the difference. So the stealth testing, the capacity for stealth testing is unlimited, and I think that's it's. I guess looking back, it's unsurprising, but I did not see it coming.
I'd like to talk about Palo Alto. This is a use case that no one has talked about until we've heard about this. So there's a lot of towns out there with transportation networks, whether it's for seniors who are they don't have any savings and they're just living off of Social Security, and it's a subsidized transportation thing where they're being driven around by buses that are they're built for a capacity to handle as much people as possible in rush hour, but are running like half empty most of the day, and you're paying that driver, throughout the day as well. They're losing significant money on those transit solutions, and they're looking at a robo-taxi, whether it's whatever form factor it is, whether it's robovan or not. Essentially you could use a 3Y S or X with the safety driver now, and that's what they're talking about doing, and basically using Palo Alto's license to do it, so that they don't have to make another application to the state of California. So this is a whole new use case, and there's tons of towns out there that have these systems in place that they would be needing it, and they'd save a lot of money to go with Tesla's solution.
Yeah, and one thing that's also interesting about Palo Alto is you have Stanford University, so you're going to have a bunch of of the ride hailing as well, just happening from, again, if they open it up, I don't know. And then obviously you have the university downtown strip, which you can get a lot of access to. There's a lot of businesses there, especially during college football games. It can get really busy on those Saturdays. And then even just, the nights as well. But then, yeah, you have those great use cases as well with elderly. And then you even have, like a big IKEA there too. So kind of going back and forth. So there's a lot of really good, but it's not necessarily San Francisco, but I think you're not going to be getting videos of homeless people jumping on it. I mean, there's homeless people there, but it's gonna, but yeah, I'm really, really excited for that. That's going to be awesome. Any thoughts on what Bradford said?
No, I just agree.
Yep, same here.
So
I do think it's incredibly important on the app that they begin to figure out the app. So like Uber and Lyft, they've had 10 years working on their apps and their logistics, and Uber is very sophisticated. They're running semis with the Uber thing, where there's this whole Uber freight thing. So, they're trying to be the logistics, the app center of transportation, and Tesla's going to start gunning for that. And they're Tesla's already saying they're training their FSD on the semis as well. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, and I think Elon did say that they have very, very high demand for the semi, right? And so hopefully they can get that thing out and running, because it will change. I think he even said, if you're essentially not using the Tesla semi, you'll end up losing in the freight business. So, but yeah, kind of going back to your ride hailing, your ride hailing comments, it just made me think of this slide that that Joe put in here. Well, just about kind of again, the future of charging. I mean, if your cars are going to be coming to you, and we know Tesla has a bunch of supercharger networks, setting up this infrastructure is not going to be, insanely hard. They may not even have to break ground for this, but they already have the infrastructure with the superchargers being set up there. But it's going to be, as all this stuff, again, this is, I don't know how many years out for the inductive charging, but if the Cybercab is coming in 26 or 27, that they're going to be working to get these out as well, especially as they're going to be tested. But yeah, I'm personally looking forward to, because, Palo Alto is 25 minutes away. I'm really excited. Once those things are out on the road, you're going to see me out there. I'm not going to be like you, Bradford, where you we're outside Lathrop, just watching the amount of what is it, a mega pack going out. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm really excited to just see the use case, see this happening, and I think we're on the brink of some pretty big things happening.
Yeah, I think real quick, I think that what you have to realize is that he talked about ramping of the Cybercab in 2026. So it's already going to drop in 2025. So it's already next year when it's going to drop. So you're looking at the ramp that's going to happen in 2026. And that, I don't think people are really ready for this, because they have a goal of 2 million vehicles a year. And I said this like a while back, this is a vehicle that's got to hit the ground running. This is this has got to be like 4,000 a week run out the gate. Like, you know what I mean? It's going to have to be like pretty scaled up pretty quickly, because these things they're trying to get to 2 million units. So it's going to go fast.
All of those projections to me are beyond the horizon, so I'm not comfortable giving timelines. We know that all of these things will happen. We just don't know when. I think late 25 is overly optimistic. I think starting the ramp in 26 is more realistic. But it all comes down to when have they hit enough nines? And I think as Cortex comes online, we'll start to get a clearer picture. But even then, I don't know. And so, and it would take at least a year to, 9 months to a year to tool up for it. But they're very good at that when the motivation is right. And this would be that kind of moment.
Well, and also MKBHD is going to shave his head. So
if what was the bet on that?
2027. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's robotaxis in 27, he'll shave his head.
Yeah.
Well, let's buy the clippers now, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, like, if they're building this car in the next, I mean, they're already setting, I know they've talked a lot about this. Elon has talked a lot about how, I mean, they're building it in Texas right now versus Mexico, right? So he already has said that he has like weekly updates on the manufacturing of this robotaxi. Again, whether that's still true today, but either way, they are definitely like getting close to building this thing and setting up the production line, if not already doing a bunch of testing. If that's the case, everything is going to be all hands on deck on solving autonomy, getting this thing ready. I mean, like I said, they're already really close, right? I mean, like when I look at my drives and I compare them to my early FSD drives, it's just crazy how far they've come. But this last mile is going to be the hardest that they'll probably ever work on. But there's no other team that I believe that can do it. But they are banking everything on autonomy. I mean, Elon has mentioned that, like, whether we're worth zero versus what we are today and more, it's all for autonomy. And obviously, he's got his other businesses within Tesla, but that is what everything is like, And then the funny thing is, we know autonomy, but then at the same time, you have this robot that, that they're solving too, which is going to be, an insane, total addressable market for that. So,
dude, they had 20 of these things at the CyberCab event.
I know.
You know what I mean? And they didn't look like they just threw them together. You know what I mean? Those things looked intent, like production intent. So
apart from the paint on the tires, I would agree. I mean, if we're going to do that, we might as well put some cards in the spokes as well, so it sounds faster.
So I'll
comment on the wireless charging real quick. You think about a car rental return lot, like people are wondering, why do you need wireless charging? So if you just stack these in rows, there's no like extra rows that you need to be able to drive down on a car rental return lot. Basically, your car goes down till you get behind the next car, and basically till you pull up to the next wireless charger and you charge. I think it's like the most space efficient way that they could set this up to do wireless charging. You're not needing to have these big supercharger stalls in the charging lot. Also, they showed the vision of the robot doing the cleaning. So if you only have like 5 or 6 models of cars, the robot's going to know how to clean all the Tesla cars. There's going to be an algorithm, a program or rules to clean the Tesla cars, and they could do that at the very end or in the middle. So that is really starting to show the vision for what the logistics would look like for running all these as robotaxis.
So Bradford just raised an absolutely amazing point that I hadn't considered. You don't need charging spots. You just need any place that the car is. And yeah, if it's like you were describing with a rental lot where it returns in a row of lined up cars, you can have them nose to tail and have endless chargers in there. And even if you've only got chargers in the last 4 positions, that's fine. You pull up to those positions, and as cars move forward, they charge. So I think it would be, you could really pack them in.
Yeah. Well, we are at top of hour already. So, I think, I'm personally, I think I've never been more excited about Tesla's future. I mean, the 1010 was something to be excited about, but even the guidance that's being made, even the hints that you're dropping to Joe about like just even next year, the Cybercab could be in production or will be at some scale, but really it just puts on it really puts the pressure or like this is the go time on like, hey, we need to solve this last 1%. And the Tesla team has never been set up to solve this than any time than now. They've been way over delivering on a lot of the on the rollouts that they've been setting. And so it's been, really exciting to watch. So I'm personally really excited. I personally have never been there's been, I've been following Tesla for 6 years, so not a veteran by any means, like some people out there. But for me personally, like I've never been more bullish than I am now about the future and where they're headed. I think they started pivoting at the exact right moment to be like, hey, this is how we're positioning ourselves. We're AI, robotics. But also at the same time, it's not like they're talking. This is not a prototype that they're talking about in like 10 years that will never happen. We know that they're already working on the production line for this. That's how, how serious they are about this autonomous future.
Yeah, there's got to be something said for the crystal ball that Elon has. Like it's insane, man. Like his vision for future things and how he just so far ahead of things, like in to a crazy point, man. Like always like right on time. Like that, like what you were mentioning, like the pivotal point for when they switched from just being a quote unquote car company to like AI robotics and all that was like everybody was like, what does this mean? And now you're like, even like Elon said on the call, they have the most advanced robotics of anybody. And this isn't even what they do full time. You know what I mean? Like, like
Exactly.
they came in, it is just a few years ago and already have exceeded everybody's expectations. And then when you figure out, like when that light switches, that you realize that they can also scale everything they do is not for niche, it's for scalability. Like it starts to get nutty really quick.
Brian or Bradford, any closing thoughts?
None from me. I think we did a pretty fantastic job, guys. I mean, it was a great week. It was a great show, I think.
Yeah, I think people got too down on Tesla, and that's why one reason why the stock went up so much. They definitely showed significant improvement in the fundamentals of their business. Going into this report, I polled people on Twitter, and 69% thought the stock would go down after earnings, and only 20% thought it would go up. So it was net bearish 49%. And typically, when you have sentiment that's lopsided, that means like the opposite is going to happen. And unfortunately, I did this poll like late in the day on Wednesday, so I wasn't able to act on it myself. But Tesla showed significant improvement fundamentally, and the stock is showing that. But also the sentiment is going to improve to, I would say, at least a more neutral stance. Not financial advice.
Exactly. None of this is financial advice. Do your own research. Well, awesome. So thank you, I think, Bradford, for joining, especially last minute. So make sure you give him a follow on X. He is at Brad S. Ferguson on X. And then you have Brian, who is a regular co-host here. He's at FutureAza. Again, he is tagged on here and YouTube. So please find his channel, subscribe. He's always dropping amazing dimes and knowledge, and just has just knowledge that people in the industry don't have. So, and he's dropping a couple videos a day. And then please don't follow the Prez because you'll probably want to unfollow him anyways. No, exactly. So make sure you give Joe. He put the deck together, and each week he puts the deck together. So please give him a follow as well. And we will catch you guys all in November next week. It's crazy already. The year's almost over. So have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time.